I stood alone in the chapel at Mount Zion Funeral Home, my hand resting on Walter's casket, and the silence pressed down on me like a heavy quilt. The pews behind me were empty, every single one. The organist had played Precious Lord to nobody but me and these four walls. Pastor Williams had delivered a beautiful eulogy about my husband of 47 years to an audience of one. Just me, Evelyn Freeman. 73 years old, wearing my black dress and my mother's pearls, standing beside the man I'd loved since I was 23, and not one of our children had bothered to show up. Not Derek, our firstborn, who Walter had coached in Little League and taught to change a tire and helped start his first business. Not Candace, our baby girl, who her daddy had walked down the aisle at Greater Faith Baptist, who he'd held when she cried about her divorce, who he'd given his last $15,000 to when she said she was about to lose her condo. Not one grandchild. Not Isaiah, Derek's boy, who Walter had taken fishing every summer. Not Candace's twins, who he'd driven to dance recitals and basketball games. Nobody. The funeral director, Mr. Thompson, kept glancing at me with these pitiful eyes, like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. And honestly, neither could I. I'd sent the service information 2 weeks ago. I'd called Derek 4 times. I'd texted Candace the details. I'd even called Isaiah directly because that boy and his granddaddy were close, or so I thought. "Mrs. Freeman," Mr. Thompson said softly, approaching me with careful steps. "Would you like a few more minutes before we proceed to the cemetery?" I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. My phone buzzed in my purse. I pulled it out, hoping, praying it was one of them saying they were running late, stuck in traffic, something. It was a notification from Instagram. Candace had posted a photo. My hand started shaking as I opened it. There was my daughter, my baby girl, sitting at Sunday brunch with her girlfriends, mimosas on the table, avocado toast, big smiles. The caption read, "Living my best life, nothing but good vibes today." The timestamp was from 30 minutes ago. 30 minutes ago, while Pastor Williams was talking about how Walter had served as a deacon for 20 years, while the choir was singing Amazing Grace to an empty room, my daughter was clinking glasses and posting about good vibes. My legs nearly gave out. I sat down hard in the front pew, staring at that picture like if I looked long enough, it would change into something that made sense. Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. I need to back up. I need to tell you how we got here, because this didn't happen overnight. This betrayal, this coldness, it grew slowly over the years, and I was too blind to see it coming. Walter and I met in 1978 at a church picnic. He was tall and strong, working construction, with hands that could build anything and a smile that could light up any room. I was a secretary at the Board of Education, living with my mother in a small apartment on the South Side. We married a year later in a simple ceremony at Greater Faith Baptist, the church we'd attend for the next 47 years. We had Derek in 1981, and Lord, that boy was the light of our lives. Walter would come home from job sites covered in dust and dirt, but he'd clean up and spend hours on the floor playing with that baby. When Candace came along in 1984, our family felt complete. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. Walter started his own contracting business in 1990, Freeman Construction, and it did well. Real well. We bought a nice house in a good neighborhood, saved for retirement, even bought a little cabin up by the lake for family vacations. But here's the thing about having more money than you grew up with. It changes how your children see you. Derek wanted to go to Howard University. Out-of-state tuition was expensive, but Walter said, "Our boy's going to get an education." We paid every penny. $53,000 over 4 years. Derek graduated with a business degree and no student loans while his friends were drowning in debt. Then he wanted to start a marketing firm. Needed startup capital. Walter pulled $30,000 from our retirement account. It's an investment in our son's future, he told me. Candace wanted a big wedding, the kind you see in magazines. Walter said we couldn't afford it, but she cried. She said all her friends were having nice weddings, and she didn't want to be embarrassed. We spent $42,000 on that wedding. The marriage lasted 3 years. After the divorce, Candace was drowning in credit card debt. $28,000. Walter paid it off. She's struggling, he said. What kind of parents would we be if we didn't help? When Derek's business hit a rough patch, he needed $60,000 to avoid bankruptcy. We remortgaged the house. The house we'd almost paid off. We were in our 60s, starting over with a mortgage, but Derek said he'd pay us back once things turned around. He never did. When Candace wanted to buy her condo, she needed help with the down payment. $15,000. Walter gave it to her from his business savings. It's her future, he said. We have to help her get established. The requests kept coming. Car repairs, emergency dental work, property taxes, school supplies for the grandkids, birthday parties, Christmas gifts, medical bills, on and on and on. Every time they called, it was, Mom, I hate to ask, but, or Dad, I'm in a bind. And we gave. We always gave. But here's what I started noticing about 5 years ago, right around the time Walter's health began declining. The visits got shorter. The phone calls were always about what they needed. They never asked how we were doing. When Walter had his first heart attack 3 years ago, Derek said he couldn't visit the hospital because he had a client meeting. A client meeting. His father almost died, and he had a client meeting. Candace came for an hour, spent most of it on her phone, and left saying she had a hair appointment. Isaiah was the only one who stayed. That boy sat with his grandfather all day, held his hand, talked to him. He was 19 then, in college, but he made time. After that heart attack, Walter wasn't the same. He couldn't work as much. The business slowed down. We started living on savings and his Social Security. Money got tighter. And you know what happened? The calls from Derek and Candace kept coming, but the visits stopped almost entirely. Last Christmas, we invited everyone to the house like we always did. I cooked for 3 days. Turkey, ham, collard greens, mac and cheese, sweet potato pie, peach cobbler, all their favorites. We bought presents for everyone, even though we couldn't really afford it. Derek showed up 2 hours late with his wife and Isaiah. He stayed for 45 minutes, ate a plate of food, grabbed his presents, and said he had to get to his wife's family dinner. His wife didn't say 10 words to us the whole time. Candace called an hour before dinner and said the twins had a school event. On Christmas Day. A school event. She promised to come the next day. She never did. Walter sat in his recliner that night, staring at the Christmas tree we'd decorated, surrounded by wrapped presents nobody had opened, and said, "When did we become an inconvenience to our own children?" I didn't have an answer. In January, Walter had his second heart attack. This one was massive. They kept him in the hospital for 2 weeks. Derek visited once, for 30 minutes, on his way to somewhere else. Candace sent flowers but said she couldn't come because she had the flu. Isaiah came every day after his classes. He'd bring his grandfather's favorite snacks from the corner store, read him the sports section, tell him about school. Walter would light up when that boy walked in. "Isaiah's got his head on straight," Walter told me one evening. "He reminds me of how I used to be, working his way through school, 2 jobs, still making time for family. Derek and Candace, I don't know what happened to them. We raised them better than this." We did raise them better. But somewhere along the way, they learned that their parents were just a resource to extract money and support from. Not people to love, not people to honor. Just a bank account with hearts that couldn't say no. Walter came home from the hospital in February. He was weak, needed a walker, couldn't do much for himself. I took care of him every day, cooking, cleaning, helping him bathe, managing his medications, driving him to appointments. I called Derek and asked if he could come help install grab bars in the bathroom. He said he'd send money to hire someone. He never sent it. I called Candace and asked if she could visit on Sundays, just for an hour, to give me a break. She said she would try. She came once in 3 months. Isaiah came twice a week, every week. He'd help his grandfather get dressed, take him for slow walks around the block, sit with him and watch basketball. Sometimes he'd stay and help me with dinner, insisting on doing dishes afterward. "Grandma, you're doing too much by yourself," he said one evening. "Where's my dad and Aunt Candace?" "They're busy, baby," I told him. "Too busy for their own father?" He shook his head. "That ain't right." It wasn't right. But I made excuses for them anyway. I always did. 2 weeks ago, on a Tuesday morning, I woke up and knew something was wrong. Walter was so still beside me. Too still. I called his name, shook his shoulder gently, and that's when I knew he was gone. He'd passed in his sleep. Peaceful, the paramedics said. His heart just gave out. I called Derek first. He said, "Oh no, Mom. Oh no. I'll call you back. I need to process this." He didn't call back for 6 hours. I called Candace. She cried on the phone, said she couldn't believe it, said she'd come right over. She showed up 3 days later. I arranged the funeral with Mr. Thompson, sent out all the information, called everyone personally. Derek said he'd be there. Candace promised she wouldn't miss it. Isaiah said he'd take off work. The service was scheduled for 11 a.m. on Saturday. I got there at 10:30, wearing my black dress, holding the program with Walter's picture on the front. His handsome face, that smile I'd loved for 47 years. 10:45 came. No one. 11 o'clock. The organist started playing. No one. 11:15. Pastor Williams asked if I wanted to wait a bit longer. I said no. Let's start. He preached to empty pews. The choir sang to silence. And I stood there, alone with my dead husband, wondering how love could turn into this. After I saw Candace's brunch post, after my heart had broken into pieces so small I didn't think they could ever be put back together, I decided to check Derek's social media. I found him on Facebook, posted 2 hours ago. There was my son on a golf course, smiling in the sunshine with 3 other men in polo shirts and khaki pants. The caption read, "Closed the Johnson deal today, celebrating with the team. #success mindset, #business life. The Johnson deal. Client golf." While his father was being buried. I sat in that empty chapel, looked at my husband's casket one last time, and something inside me changed. Something fundamental shifted. These weren't my children anymore. They were strangers who happened to share my blood. Strangers who had used us up and tossed us aside like empty containers. Strangers who couldn't even pretend to care for 2 hours on the day we laid their father to rest. Mr. Thompson approached again. "Mrs. Freeman, I'm so sorry. I've been doing this for 30 years and I've never seen... I'm just so sorry." "It's time," I said, standing up. My voice sounded different, even to my own ears, harder, colder. "Let's go to the cemetery." We drove in a small procession, the hearse, my car, and that was it. At the cemetery, they lowered Walter into the ground while I stood there alone. I threw a handful of dirt on the casket, said my private goodbye, and walked back to my car. My phone rang. It was Derek. I stared at his name on the screen for a long moment. Then I answered. "Hey, Mom," he said, his voice casual, like this was any other day. "Sorry I missed the service. The Johnson meeting ran long and you know how it is. Couldn't reschedule. Dad would understand. He was a businessman. I'll come by this week and we can have a memorial, just us. That sound good?" I couldn't speak. Rage filled me so completely that for a moment I couldn't breathe. "Mom? You there?" "Your father's in the ground," I said quietly. "And you were playing golf." Silence. "I saw your post, Derek. You closed a deal. You celebrated, while I stood alone at your father's funeral." "Mom, I can explain." I hung up. Candace called 10 minutes later. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I lost track of time at brunch, and by the time I realized what time it was, I knew I'd miss most of it anyway. So I thought maybe it was better to just... I'll come see you tomorrow. We'll talk. I love you." Lost track of time. At brunch, while posting on Instagram about living her best life. I drove home to the empty house Walter and I had filled with love and laughter and family for over 40 years. I walked through the door, and the silence hit me like a wave. No more Walter calling out, "That you, Evie?" No more smell of his coffee in the morning. No more sound of him humming while he read the newspaper. Just silence. And me. Alone. I sat at the kitchen table and cried until I had no tears left. Then I did something I'd been too afraid to do for years. I opened my laptop and looked at my bank accounts, looked at the numbers, looked at what we had left after a lifetime of giving to children who couldn't even show up to say goodbye to their father. The house was almost paid off again. We'd been making double payments for 5 years to clear that second mortgage Derek had caused. The lake cabin was fully paid for. Walter's life insurance was substantial. He'd kept that policy up, thank God. And our savings, though depleted from years of bailing out Derek and Candace, was still significant. Altogether, everything I had was worth just over $850,000. The inheritance I'd always planned to split between Derek and Candace. But as I sat there in the dark kitchen, in the house filled with ghosts and broken promises, I realized something. They didn't deserve a single penny, and I knew exactly what I was going to do about it. The Monday after Walter's funeral, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I made myself coffee, sat at the kitchen table with the morning sun streaming through the windows, and I called Isaiah. "Grandma," he answered immediately. "I've been trying to reach you. I'm so sorry I missed Grandpa's funeral. I don't know what happened. I had it marked on my calendar. I set alarms, but I woke up Saturday morning feeling so sick. Food poisoning or something. I was in the bathroom all day, couldn't even stand up. I should have called, Baby, stop," I said gently. "You're the only one who called me Sunday to apologize and check on me. You're the only one who's called me every day since your grandfather passed. You have nothing to apologize for." "But I wasn't there when you needed me." "You've been there for 2 years, Isaiah. You were there when it mattered. When your grandfather was alive and needed company, needed help, needed to know he was loved. You were there." He was quiet for a moment. "How are you doing, Grandma? Really?" "I need your help with something," I said. "Can you come by today?" "I'll be there in an hour." True to his word, Isaiah pulled up at 10 o'clock in his old Honda Civic that he kept running with YouTube tutorials and junkyard parts. He was 22 now, tall like his grandfather had been, with Walter's same warm eyes. He worked 2 jobs while finishing his degree in engineering at the community college, never asked us for money, never expected anything. I had coffee and pound cake waiting for him. We sat at the kitchen table, and I told him everything. About standing alone at the funeral, about Candace's brunch post, about Derek's golf game and business deal. About 40 years of giving and giving until there was almost nothing left but this empty house and memories. Isaiah's jaw tightened as I talked, his hands clenched into fists on the table. I knew Dad was selfish, but this? And Aunt Candace? He shook his head. "Grandma, I don't even know what to say." "I need you to help me find a good lawyer," I said. "I'm changing my will." His eyes widened. "Grandma..." "Everything I have, everything your grandfather and I built, it's going to you. The house, the cabin, the savings, all of it. Derek and Candace won't see a dime." "Grandma, I can't accept that. That's not right. I don't need..." "It's not about what you need, baby. It's about what's right. Your grandfather would want this. We talked about it actually a few weeks before he passed. He said to me, 'Evie, Isaiah's the only one who treats us like family instead of an ATM. When I'm gone, make sure he's taken care of.' I promised him I would." That part was true. Walter had said exactly that. Isaiah's eyes filled with tears. I loved him so much." "I know you did. And he knew it too. That meant everything to him." Isaiah helped me search for attorneys online. We found one named Valerie Chen. Wait, no, I remembered I needed to avoid that name. We found an attorney named Valerie Blackwell who specialized in estate planning and family law. Her website showed a professional-looking black woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a wall of law degrees behind her desk. Her reviews were excellent. I called and made an appointment for Wednesday. That afternoon, Derek showed up at my door. I was in the kitchen making myself a sandwich when I heard his car in the driveway. Through the window, I watched him walk up with a bouquet of grocery store flowers and what looked like a store-bought sympathy card. Too little, too late. I opened the door before he could knock. "Mom," he said, trying to smile. "I brought you these. I wanted to check on you." "Now you want to check on me," I said. His smile faltered. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. He walked into the living room, looking around like he was seeing it for the first time. Maybe he was. It had been almost 8 months since he'd been here. "Place looks good," he said awkwardly. I didn't respond, just stood there with my arms crossed, waiting. "Mom, about the funeral, I need you to understand. The Johnson account is worth $200,000 in annual contracts. I couldn't just—" "Your father was worth more than a contract," I said. "Of course he was. I'm not saying, look, Dad would have understood. He was a businessman. He knew sometimes you have to make hard choices." "Hard choices," I repeated. "You chose golf over your father's funeral." "It wasn't just golf. It was closing a deal. And Candace chose mimosas and avocado toast." Derek shifted uncomfortably. "I talked to her. She feels terrible. She said it was a miscommunication. She thought the service was at 2. Don't you dare lie for her. I sent her the details 5 times. She knew exactly when it was." He ran his hand over his face. "Okay, look. We messed up. Both of us. We should have been there. But Mom, we're here now. We want to help you through this. We want to be here for you. Where were you when your father needed help getting dressed? Where were you when he needed someone to sit with him so I could go to the grocery store? Where were you for the last 3 years while he was declining?" "I was working, Mom. I have a business to run, a family to support. Isaiah has 2 jobs in college and he was here twice a week." Derek's expression hardened. "Isaiah doesn't have the same responsibilities I do." "No, he has something you don't. Decency." "That's not fair." "You want to talk about fair?" My voice rose. "Is it fair that I stood alone at your father's funeral? Is it fair that for 40 years every time you had a problem we solved it with our money, and the one time we needed you to show up for 2 hours, you couldn't be bothered?" "We paid for everything," Derek shot back. "College, my business, Candace's wedding, her debt, her down payment, do you know how much that was?" "I know exactly how much it was. Every single penny. And we gave it freely because we loved you. We never expected to be repaid. But we did expect to be treated like human beings. We expected basic respect. We expected that when your father died, you'd at least pretend to care." Derek's face flushed red. "I did care. I do care. But life doesn't stop because someone dies. Bills don't stop. Responsibilities don't stop." "Love shouldn't stop either," I said quietly. "But yours did. Years ago." "That's not true." "Then where have you been, Derek? Really been? Not just physically present for 30 minutes here and there, but actually here. When's the last time you called just to talk? When's the last time you came over without needing something?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no answer. "That's what I thought," I said. "You can leave now." "Mom, come on, don't be like this. We're family." "Family shows up," I said. "You didn't. Now please leave." He stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something flicker across his face. Calculation. Like he was trying to figure out a different angle. Is this about the inheritance? He asked. Because if you're upset and thinking about changing Dad's will or something, I just want you to know that's not necessary. Candace and I don't care about money. We care about you. There it was, the real reason for the visit. Get out of my house, I said. Mom, get out! He left, taking his cheap flowers with him. I locked the door behind him and stood in the entryway, shaking with anger and adrenaline. My phone buzzed. A text from Candace. Can I come see you tomorrow? We need to talk. I love you, Mom. I didn't respond. Wednesday morning, Isaiah drove me to Valerie Blackwell's office downtown. It was in a nice building, the kind with marble floors and modern art on the walls. The receptionist, a young woman with beautiful braids, smiled warmly and offered us coffee. Attorney Blackwell came out to greet us personally. She was exactly like her photo, professional, warm, and direct. Mrs. Freeman, Isaiah, please come in. Her office was beautiful. Big windows overlooking the city, shelves full of law books, and on her desk, a framed photo of her with 3 teenage children. Thank you for seeing me on short notice, I said. Of course. On the phone, you mentioned needing to update your estate plan. Can you tell me more about your situation? I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, taking notes occasionally, her expression neutral but her eyes sharp. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. Mrs. Freeman, I want to make sure I understand correctly. You want to disinherit both of your adult children completely and leave your entire estate to your grandson? Yes. And you're certain about this decision? These types of changes can create significant family conflict. The conflict already exists, I said. They just don't know it yet. She nodded slowly. All right. Let me explain your options and the legal framework. In this state, you have the right to distribute your estate however you choose. Adult children have no automatic right to inherit. However, disinherited children often contest wills, claiming undue influence, lack of capacity, or other grounds. I'm 73, but my mind is sharp, I said. And nobody's influencing me. This is my choice. I believe you, but we need to make this will airtight so it can withstand any challenge. That means we'll include very specific language about your capacity, your intent, and your reasons for this distribution. We'll also have you evaluated by a doctor to document your mental competency. Whatever it takes, I said. I also recommend including a no contest clause. If either of your children challenges the will and loses, they forfeit any right to even the small provision we might leave them. Small provision? Sometimes it's strategically wise to leave a token amount, say $1 each, specifically stating that you haven't forgotten them, but have intentionally chosen this distribution. It makes it harder for them to claim you were incompetent or forgot about them. I considered this. $1 each. I like that. Attorney Blackwell smiled slightly. I thought you might. Now, about Isaiah. He'll need to be prepared for the backlash. Your other children will likely direct their anger toward him. Isaiah spoke up. I can handle it. It may be more intense than you think, she warned. Money changes people. They may accuse you of manipulation, of taking advantage of your grandmother. Let them, Isaiah said firmly. I know the truth. Grandma knows the truth. That's what matters. Attorney Blackwell looked at me. You raised at least one of them right. His parents did, I said. Despite Derek's failings as a son, he was a decent father. At least he gave me one good thing. We spent the next 2 hours going over details: asset inventory, beneficiary designations, funeral arrangements, everything. Attorney Blackwell was thorough and patient, explaining every option and implication. One more thing, she said as we were wrapping up. I recommend you get a complete physical and cognitive evaluation from your doctor. We'll need documentation that you were of sound mind when you made these decisions. Can you do that this week? I'll call Dr. Martinez this afternoon. Good. I'll have the draft will ready by Monday. We'll review it together, make any changes, and then execute it with witnesses. I'll also prepare a letter explaining your reasoning. Not legally required, but it can be powerful if this ends up in court." As we stood to leave, she said, "Mrs. Freeman, I've been doing this for 26 years. I've seen a lot of family situations. What your children did, missing their father's funeral, that's one of the worst things I've heard. You're doing the right thing." Her words meant more than she knew. That evening, I was sitting on the back porch watching the sunset when my phone rang. Candace. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mom, finally," she said. "I've been so worried. Why haven't you been answering my texts?" "I've been busy." "Busy? Mom, you just lost Dad. You shouldn't be alone right now. I'm coming over." "Don't." "What?" "Mom, don't be silly. I'll bring dinner. We can talk." "We don't have anything to talk about, Candace." Silence on the other end. Then, carefully, "You're angry about the funeral." Angry doesn't begin to cover it. I explained that. "I lost track of time. You were posting on Instagram about living your best life while I buried your father alone." I posted that earlier in the morning before I realized. Stop lying. The timestamp was 10:47 a.m. The funeral started at 11. You were at brunch, drinking mimosas, choosing your friends over your father's funeral. More silence. Then her voice changed, became harder. "Okay, yes, I was at brunch. But Mom, you have to understand. I was devastated about Dad dying. I couldn't face the funeral. It was too painful. I needed my friends for support. I needed my daughter for support," I shouted. "I needed you there. Your father needed you there." "He was dead, Mom. He didn't need anything." The words hit me like a slap. I couldn't breathe for a moment. "What did you just say?" I whispered. "I didn't mean it like that." "I just meant—" "You meant exactly what you said. Your father was dead, so he didn't matter. Only what you needed mattered. Only what was convenient for you." "Mom, please." "Did you know your father talked about you 2 days before he died?" I said. "He said, 'I hope we did right by our children. I hope they'll remember us well.' He was worried about your happiness, your well-being, right up until the end. And you couldn't give him 2 hours." I heard her crying on the other end. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, let me come over. Let me make this right." "There's nothing to make right? It's done." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done being your backup plan. I'm done being someone you remember when you need money or favors. I'm done." "You don't mean that. You're grieving. You're not thinking clearly." "I've never thought more clearly in my life." "Mom, please, I love you. Derek loves you. We're your children." "My child was at the funeral," I said. "Isaiah sat with his grandfather every week for 2 years. He called every day after your father died. He checked on me. That's what children do." "Isaiah?" Her voice turned sharp. "What does Isaiah have to do with anything?" "Everything," I said. "He has everything to do with everything." "What's that supposed to mean?" "You'll find out soon enough." I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but this time it wasn't from grief or shock. It was from power, from the knowledge that for the first time in 40 years I was taking control of my own life. I called Isaiah. "Can you come over this weekend? I want to take you up to the lake cabin. We need to talk about some things." "Of course, Grandma. Saturday?" "Perfect." That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Saturday morning dawned clear and beautiful. Isaiah picked me up at 8, and we drove the 2 hours north to the cabin. Walter and I had bought it 30 years ago, back when the area was still affordable. Now it was worth a small fortune, surrounded by vacation homes and resort developments. The cabin itself wasn't fancy, just a 3-bedroom wooden structure with a big porch overlooking the lake. But it was filled with memories. Family vacations, fish fries, late-night card games, grandchildren running through the grass catching fireflies. Back when my children still made time for family. Isaiah helped me unload the groceries we'd brought. We spent the morning cleaning and airing the place out, then sat on the porch with sweet tea, watching boats drift across the water. "Grandpa loved this place," Isaiah said quietly. "He did. He wanted to retire here. We had plans to fix it up, maybe rent it out during the summer to help with income. He had all these ideas." "What kind of ideas?" "New deck, updated kitchen, maybe add a boat dock." He was always sketching plans, pricing out materials. But then his heart got bad, and we never got around to it. Isaiah was quiet for a moment. "What if we did it? Fixed it up, I mean. Made it what he wanted." I looked at him. "You'd want to do that?" "I'm studying engineering, Grandma. I could do a lot of the work myself. And the stuff I can't do, I've got friends in the trades program. This place could be amazing. It would take time, money." "I've got time, and you've got—" He stopped, looking uncomfortable. "I mean, if you want to invest in it, I'd pay you back." "Isaiah," I interrupted gently, "you're going to own this place. You might as well start planning what you want to do with it." He stared at me. "Grandma, you can't just give me—" "It's already decided. Attorney Blackwell is drawing up the papers. Everything your grandfather and I built, it's yours. The house in the city, this cabin, the savings, all of it." "But your kids?" "My children had 40 years to show they cared about us as people, not just as sources of money. They failed. You didn't. The choice is made." Isaiah's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll make your grandfather proud. Say you'll use it wisely. Build something meaningful. That's all I want." "I promise," he whispered. "I swear, Grandma, I know you will. That's why it's yours." We spent the rest of the weekend at the cabin, talking about Walter, about the future, about Isaiah's plans. He wanted to finish his engineering degree, use his inheritance to start a contracting business like his grandfather had, maybe restore old houses and rent them affordably to families who couldn't buy. "There's so many people priced out of decent housing," he said. "I want to do something that matters, not just make money." He had Walter's heart. He had our values. He was the only one who did. Sunday evening, we drove back to the city. Isaiah dropped me off at home just as the sun was setting. "Thank you, Grandma," he said, hugging me tight. "For everything. For trusting me." "Thank you for being who you are," I said. "Your grandfather would be so proud." I walked into my empty house, feeling lighter than I had in years. This was the right choice. I knew it in my bones. Monday morning, I had my appointment with Dr. Martinez. She was my age, had been my doctor for 15 years, and knew me well. "Evelyn," she said warmly, "I was so sorry to hear about Walter. How are you holding up?" "Better than expected," I said, "but I need your help with something." I explained what I needed, a complete cognitive and mental health evaluation for legal purposes. She listened carefully. "This is for your will?" "Yes. I'm making some changes that my children won't like. I need documentation that I'm of sound mind." Dr. Martinez smiled. "Evelyn, I've known you for 15 years. Your mind is sharper than most people half your age, but I'll do a complete workup to document it officially." She spent the next hour testing my memory, reasoning, decision-making ability, everything. When she finished, she sat back with a satisfied expression. "Perfect scores across the board. I'll have my full report ready by Wednesday. For the record, I think you're making a wise decision. Family is supposed to show up." That's what I thought too. Wednesday afternoon, I met with Attorney Blackwell again. She had the draft will ready, along with Dr. Martinez's evaluation and her own detailed memorandum explaining my reasoning. "This is bulletproof," she said, sliding the documents across her desk. "If your children challenge this, they'll lose." I read through everything carefully. It was all there. The house and its contents to Isaiah, the cabin to Isaiah, all savings and investments to Isaiah, with the exception of $1 each to Derek and Candace, explicitly stating that this was intentional and reflected my evaluation of their conduct and character. "It's perfect," I said. "Then let's make it official." She called in 2 witnesses, her paralegal and the receptionist, both of whom could testify that I was lucid, coherent, and under no duress. I signed every page, they witnessed, and just like that, it was done. 40 years of sacrifice, redirected with a signature. "When do you plan to tell them?" Attorney Blackwell asked. "I'm not sure yet. Maybe not until after I'm gone." "That's your right. Though fair warning, the surprise factor often makes the resulting conflict worse." "There's going to be conflict either way," I said. "At least this way, I won't have to hear them lie and manipulate and pretend they suddenly care." She nodded. "The will is filed and secured. If anything happens to you, Isaiah will be notified immediately. Until then, it's completely confidential." I walked out of that office feeling 10 feet tall. That evening, I was making dinner when someone started pounding on my front door. Loud, aggressive pounding. I looked through the peephole and saw Derek standing there, his face red, his expression furious. My heart started racing. Something had changed. Something had happened. I opened the door with the chain still on. "What do you want?" "I want to know what the hell you're doing," he shouted. "My wife saw you at Dr. Martinez's office. She works in the same building. She said you were getting a psychiatric evaluation." "Oh no." "And then today, Mom, my accountant's wife works at Blackwell and Associates. She mentioned seeing you there twice last week." "An estate planning attorney, Mom. Are you changing your will?" I stood there, frozen, trying to think. "You are." His eyes widened with fury. "You're actually doing it. You're cutting us out because of the funeral." "Derek, do you have any idea how much money we've sacrificed for you? How many times we've helped you and Dad? And you're going to disinherit us over one mistake?" "One mistake?" I said. "Is that what you think this is about?" "Open this door. We need to talk about this." "No." "Mom, open the door right now, or I swear—" "Or you'll what?" I said coldly. "You'll show your true colors even more than you already have? This is Isaiah, isn't it? He's been poisoning you against us. That manipulative little—" "Don't you dare," I said. "Isaiah has done nothing but love and respect his grandfather and me, which is more than I can say for you. If you leave everything to him, I'll fight it. I'll contest the will. I'll drag this through court for years." "Go ahead and try," I said. "My attorney assured me it's airtight. You'll lose. And when you do, you'll get nothing. Not even the $1 I was planning to leave you." His face went pale. $1? You were going to leave me $1? "That's more than you deserve. I'm your son." "Then act like it," I screamed through the door. "Act like someone who cares about his mother, not like a vulture circling, waiting for me to die so you can cash in." "You're crazy. You're a bitter old woman who can't accept that her children have lives." I slammed the door shut and locked it, my whole body shaking. Derek kept pounding, kept yelling. Neighbors' lights started turning on. Finally, I called the police. "There's someone at my door threatening me," I said calmly. "I want him removed from my property." Derek was still yelling when the police car pulled up 10 minutes later. I watched through the window as 2 officers talked to him, saw him pointing at my house, gesturing wildly. Then I saw them walk him to his car and watch him drive away. One of the officers knocked gently on my door. "Mrs. Freeman, you okay in there?" I opened the door. The officer was young, couldn't have been more than 25, with kind eyes. "I'm fine, thank you." "That was your son?" "Unfortunately." He nodded like he understood more than I'd said. "He's gone now. If he comes back and harasses you again, call us immediately. We'll arrest him for trespassing." After they left, I sat down on the couch, my heart still racing. My phone started ringing. Derek. Then Candace. Then Derek again. Text messages started flooding in. From Derek. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." From Candace. "Derek told me what you're doing. How could you? We're your children." From Derek again. "Isaiah is using you. He's manipulating you. Don't you see that?" From Candace. "Please, Mom, please don't do this. We'll be better. We'll visit more. Just don't cut us out." I turned my phone off and sat in the silence of my empty house. This was just the beginning. I knew that. The real battle was still to come. But I also knew something else. I wasn't backing down. Not this time. Not ever again. The next morning I woke up to discover that Candace had shown up at my front door at 6 a.m. I heard her car, heard her footsteps on the porch, heard her voice calling through the door. "Mom, please. I know you're in there. We need to talk. Please open the door." I stayed in bed, listening to her plead for 20 minutes before she finally gave up and left. At 7:30, my phone, which I'd turned back on, started ringing. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. I answered cautiously. "Mrs. Freeman? This is Gerald Simmons. I'm an attorney representing your son, Derek. He's asked me to contact you regarding some concerning decisions you've recently made about your estate." My blood ran cold. Derek had already hired a lawyer. "I don't wish to speak to you," I said. "Mrs. Freeman, I understand you're grieving and may not be thinking clearly. My client is concerned that you're being influenced by outside parties to make decisions that aren't in your best interest. If we could just meet..." "I'm not being influenced by anyone. I'm of sound mind. I've been evaluated by my physician, and my decisions are final. Don't contact me again." I hung up and immediately called Attorney Blackwell. "They're already coming after me," I told her. "Derek hired a lawyer." "That's fast," she said calmly, "but not surprising. Don't speak to any attorneys who contact you on behalf of your children. Refer them to me. I'll handle it." "Can they really contest the will while I'm still alive?" "They can try to claim you lack capacity and need a conservator appointed, but that's a very high bar to meet, especially with Dr. Martinez's evaluation. They'd essentially have to prove you're incompetent, and you're clearly not. Still, I want you to start documenting everything. Every interaction, every threat, every manipulation attempt. Write it down. Save texts and voicemails. Everything. If this goes to court after you pass, that documentation will be valuable." "It's really going to court, isn't it?" "Probably. But Mrs. Freeman, we're going to win. Trust me." That afternoon, I got a surprise visitor. Pastor Williams from Greater Faith Baptist knocked on my door, his face concerned. "Sister Evelyn," he said when I answered. "May I come in?" I let him in, offered him coffee, and we sat in the living room. "Derek and Candace came to see me this morning," he said gently. "They're very upset. They say you're cutting them out of your will because of the funeral." My heart sank. "Did they tell you why they missed the funeral?" "They said there were misunderstandings about the time, conflicts they couldn't avoid." "Pastor." Derek was playing golf and closing business deals. Candace was at brunch posting on Instagram, while I stood alone at my husband's funeral. Pastor Williams' expression changed. He looked shocked. "They told me..." "They lied. They're lying to everyone, trying to make me look like the unreasonable one." He was quiet for a long moment. "May I see the posts?" I pulled them up on my phone and showed him. Candace's brunch photo, time-stamped during the funeral. Derek's golf celebration. Pastor Williams stared at the screen, his face hardening. "I had no idea," he said quietly. "Sister Evelyn, I'm so sorry. I would never have come here if I'd known the truth." "They're convincing, aren't they? They've had years of practice telling me what I want to hear." "What they did..." He shook his head. "That's not just disrespect, that's cruelty. And to lie about it to your pastor." He stood up. "I came here to counsel you toward forgiveness and reconciliation. But I see now that you're not the one who needs counseling. They are. Thank you for believing me." Of course I believe you. I've known you for 47 years, Evelyn. You're one of the most honest people I know. And for what it's worth, I think whatever decisions you're making about your estate, they're yours to make. Those children need to learn that actions have consequences. After he left, I felt lighter. Having my pastor on my side meant more than I'd expected. The next Sunday, I went to church for the first time since Walter died. I walked in alone, found my usual seat, the one Walter and I had shared for decades, and tried not to cry. Sister Ruth, who'd been my friend for 30 years, slid into the pew beside me and took my hand. "We've been praying for you," she whispered. "How you holding up?" "Better now," I said. During the service, Pastor Williams asked the congregation to keep me in their prayers as I grieved and navigated this difficult time. Afterward, at least a dozen people came up to hug me, offer condolences, bring me food. Brother James, who ran a construction company, pulled me aside. "Sister Evelyn, I heard through the grapevine that you might need some work done at your properties. If you do, you call me first. Family discount. Walter was good people." Sister Denise, who worked at the courthouse, squeezed my hand. "If you need any legal documents filed or courthouse navigation help, you let me know. Free of charge." The church community was wrapping around me like a warm blanket. These people, many of whom I'd known for decades, were showing up in ways my own children hadn't. When Derek and Candace arrived halfway through service, clearly trying to make a public appearance, I watched several church members deliberately turn away from them, giving them cold shoulders. The church gossip network had been working. People knew what they'd done. They tried to approach me after service, but Sister Ruth and Brother James flanked me, creating a physical barrier. "Your mother needs space," Sister Ruth said firmly. "You two should go." "This is our church too," Candace protested. "Then act like it," Brother James said. "Act like people who honor their parents instead of people who skip their daddy's funeral to go brunching." Candace's face went red. Derek grabbed her arm and they left quickly. But not before I saw the anger in his eyes. That evening, the harassment escalated. I received 17 calls from Derek and 12 from Candace. Text messages flooded in. Then Derek's wife called, crying, saying I was tearing the family apart. Then Candace's ex-husband called, which was bizarre since they'd been divorced for 15 years. Finally, at 9 p.m., there was pounding on my door again. "Mom, open up! We know you're in there!" It was both of them this time, Derek and Candace together. "We're not leaving until you talk to us," Candace shouted. I called the police again, and then I called Isaiah. "I'm on my way," he said immediately. "Don't open the door." The police arrived first, same young officer from before. "Mrs. Freeman, they're refusing to leave," he said through the door. "Do you want to press charges for trespassing?" "Yes," I said firmly. I watched through the window as he informed Derek and Candace, watched their faces transform from anger to shock to fear. "Our mother is crazy!" Candace screamed. "She needs help! We're trying to help her!" "Ma'am, if you don't leave the property immediately, you'll be arrested." They left just as Isaiah's car pulled up. He sat with me until midnight, making sure they didn't come back. "This is getting out of control," he said. "Grandma, maybe you should come stay with me for a while." "No," I said. "This is my house. Walter's and mine. I'm not letting them drive me out of it." The next week, Attorney Blackwell called with news. Derek's attorney filed a petition claiming you lack mental capacity and requesting a conservatorship hearing. It's scheduled for next month. Can they do that? They can file it. They can't win it. Martinez's evaluation is devastating to their case. Plus, I've already filed our response including all the documentation you've provided, the texts, the harassment, the police reports. We're also including character witnesses. Your pastor has agreed to testify, along with several church members and your physician. The judge is going to see very clearly who's actually behaving irrationally here. What do I need to do? Show up, tell the truth, and be yourself. You're articulate, coherent, and obviously competent. The medical evidence supports that. Derek's case is going to fall apart. The month leading up to the hearing was brutal. Derek and Candace launched a full campaign, calling extended family, old friends, anyone who would listen, claiming I was senile and being manipulated by Isaiah. Some people believed them. My cousin Patricia called, concerned. Walter's brother Raymond called, asking if I needed help, but most people saw through it. Especially after I started forwarding them the screenshots of Candace's brunch post and Derek's golf game, both time-stamped during their father's funeral. The truth was my best weapon, and I wasn't afraid to use it. The hearing day arrived in early December. Attorney Blackwell picked me up at 8 a.m. Isaiah met us at the courthouse. "You ready for this, Grandma?" he asked. "More ready than they are," I said. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Judge Patricia Morrison presided, a black woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Derek and Candace sat with their attorney, Gerald Simmons, looking confident. They'd both dressed conservatively, probably trying to look like concerned, responsible children. Judge Morrison reviewed the petition, then looked at Derek. "Mr. Freeman, you're claiming your mother lacks the mental capacity to manage her own affairs. That's a serious allegation. What evidence do you have?" Simmons stood. "Your Honor, Mrs. Freeman recently underwent a psychiatric evaluation and changed her will to disinherit my clients entirely, leaving everything to her grandson. This decision was made shortly after her husband's death, while she was clearly in a state of grief and emotional distress. We believe she's being unduly influenced." "I have Mrs. Freeman's psychiatric evaluation here," Judge Morrison interrupted, holding up papers. "Conducted by Dr. Elena Martinez, who's been Mrs. Freeman's physician for 15 years. Dr. Martinez found Mrs. Freeman to be fully competent, with excellent cognitive function and decision-making capacity." "Do you have contradictory medical evidence?" "Well, no, Your Honor, but do you have any medical professional who has evaluated Mrs. Freeman and found her incompetent?" "No, but the circumstances—" "What circumstances? That she changed her will? That's not evidence of incompetence. That's evidence of autonomy." Attorney Blackwell stood. "Your Honor, may I present our evidence?" "Please do." What followed was devastating for Derek and Candace. Attorney Blackwell presented everything: the funeral timeline, the social media posts, the police reports documenting their harassment, testimony from Pastor Williams about how they'd lied to him, character statements from church members and neighbors, financial records showing 40 years of my supporting them while receiving nothing in return. Then Dr. Martinez testified, explaining in detail how she'd evaluated me and found me to be sharp, competent, and capable. "In my professional opinion," Dr. Martinez said, "Mrs. Freeman is more mentally competent than many people half her age. Her decision-making is sound, rational, and based on real experiences and relationships. There is absolutely no medical basis for claiming she lacks capacity." Pastor Williams testified next. "I've known Evelyn Freeman for 47 years. She's one of the most level-headed, wise, and compassionate people in our congregation. Her children lied to me about why they missed their father's funeral. That tells me everything I need to know about who's actually behaving irrationally in this situation." Then it was my turn to testify. Attorney Blackwell walked me through my story gently. I explained the funeral, the years of financial support, the pattern of neglect, the final betrayal. "Mrs. Freeman," Attorney Blackwell said, "why did you decide to change your will?" "Because my children showed me who they really are," I said, looking directly at Derek and Candace. "For 40 years, I thought I was raising them to be kind, loving, generous people. I thought I was teaching them about family and loyalty and showing up for the people you love. But when it mattered most, when their father needed them to show up for 2 hours, just 2 hours, to say goodbye, they chose business deals and brunch instead. That told me everything. They don't see me as their mother, they see me as a bank account, and I'm done being used." "Are you angry at them?" Attorney Blackwell asked. I'm heartbroken, I said honestly. But I'm also free. For the first time in decades, I'm making decisions based on what's right, not what's easiest or what makes them happy. And what's right is giving my estate to someone who actually loves me, someone who showed up, someone who honors what his grandfather and I built. When I stepped down, I saw tears on several faces in the courtroom, but not Derek's or Candace's. They just looked angry. Derek's attorney tried to salvage things during his closing argument. Your Honor, Mrs. Freeman is clearly hurt and angry, but that doesn't mean her decision is rational. She's essentially punishing her children for one mistake. One mistake. Judge Morrison's voice was sharp. Counselor, missing your father's funeral to play golf and go to brunch isn't a mistake. It's a choice. A cruel one. And this court does not exist to override a competent person's decisions just because her children don't like the consequences of their own actions. She looked at Derek and Candace. I've reviewed all the evidence in this case. Your mother is clearly competent. She has every right to distribute her estate however she chooses. This petition is denied. She banged her gavel. Furthermore, I'm ordering you both to stay at least 500 feet away from Mrs. Freeman unless she initiates contact. The harassment documented in this case is unacceptable. If you violate this order, you'll be arrested. This hearing is concluded. It was over. We'd won. Derek and Candace stood frozen, shock and rage warring on their faces. As we walked out of the courtroom, Candace shouted after me, You're going to regret this. You'll die alone, you bitter old woman. I turned back to look at her. I've been alone for years, Candace. You just never noticed. Outside the courthouse, Attorney Blackwell shook my hand. That was one of the most satisfying cases I've ever had. Isaiah hugged me tight. I'm so proud of you, Grandma. I'm proud of you too, baby. Your grandfather would be so happy. That night, the church held a small dinner in my honor. Sister Ruth had organized it. Just a dozen close friends, good food, and warm fellowship. They didn't mention the hearing or my children. They just loved on me, told stories about Walter, and reminded me that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who choose to show up. Over the next few months, I slowly built a new life. Isaiah and I spent every Sunday together, sometimes at the lake cabin where he'd started renovation work with his friends from the trades program. He had vision and talent, and watching him bring Walter's dreams to life healed something in me. I started a grief support group at church for widows and widowers. I volunteered at the food bank. I took a watercolor painting class and discovered I actually had some talent. I lived. Derek and Candace tried reaching out a few times through other family members, but I never responded. The restraining order made it clear they couldn't contact me directly. I heard through the grapevine that Derek's business was struggling and Candace had gotten fired from her job. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pity, just nothing. They'd made their choices. I'd made mine. On what would have been Walter's 76th birthday, Isaiah and I went to the cemetery. We brought flowers and Walter's favorite whiskey, and we sat by his grave telling him about everything that had happened. You were right about Isaiah, I told the headstone. He's going to do great things with what we built. He's going to make it mean something. Isaiah was quiet for a moment, then said, I've been thinking about what to name the business. I want to call it Freeman Legacy Builders, after you and Grandpa, building homes and futures for families who need them. Making the name mean something good again. Tears streamed down my face. Your grandfather would love that. I know, Isaiah said softly. That's why I'm doing it. A year after Walter's death, I went back to Mount Zion Funeral Home. Mr. Thompson was surprised to see me. Mrs. Freeman, how are you? I'm well, I said. I came to thank you. Thank me? For treating my husband with dignity even when his children didn't. For the kindness you showed me that day. It meant more than you know. He smiled gently. You're welcome. And if I may say so, you look different than you did that day. Stronger. I am stronger, I said. I found out who I really am when nobody else was watching. And I like her. I walked out of that funeral home with my head high, got in my car, and drove to the lake cabin where Isaiah was working on the new deck. He saw me coming and waved, his smile bright and genuine. This was family. This was love. This was worth protecting. And I had no regrets. Sometimes the greatest act of love is setting boundaries. Sometimes the greatest freedom comes from saying no. Sometimes justice means watching people face the consequences of their own choices. And sometimes, when you lose everything, you discover what really matters. I'd spent 73 years trying to make everyone else happy. Now I was finally making myself happy, and it felt like coming home. 6 months later, on a warm spring afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Evelyn Freeman? A woman's voice, professional and kind. Yes? My name is Janet Cole. I'm a social worker with County Services. I'm calling about your daughter, Candace. She listed you as her emergency contact. My stomach dropped. What happened? She was in a car accident. She's okay, minor injuries, but she's asking for you. She's at County Hospital. I sat down hard. We're not in contact. I understand. She told me there's been family conflict, but she was very insistent that I call you. She said she needs to talk to you, that it's important. I closed my eyes. This was manipulation. It had to be. Another attempt to guilt me into... But what if it wasn't? What if she was genuinely hurt and scared? I'll think about it, I said. Thank you for calling. I hung up and sat there for a long time. Then I called Isaiah. What do you think I should do? I asked after explaining. That's up to you, Grandma. But whatever you decide, I support you. I thought about it for an hour. Then I drove to the hospital. Candace was in a room on the 3rd floor, her arm in a sling, a bandage on her forehead. She looked small and tired and older than her 41 years. When she saw me, she started crying. Mom, you came. The social worker said you were hurt. I'm okay, just banged up. She wiped her eyes. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. What did you want to talk about? She was quiet for a long moment. I wanted to apologize. Really apologize. Not because I want something or because I'm trying to manipulate you. Just because I'm sorry. For everything. For the funeral. For the years of using you. For all of it. I didn't respond, just waited. I lost my job 3 months ago, she continued. Lost my condo last month. I've been staying with friends, trying to figure out what to do. And today, driving to another job interview I probably won't get, I just broke down. Started crying so hard I couldn't see, and I ran a red light. The accident was my fault. Are you telling me this because you want money? I asked directly. No. She looked me in the eye. I'm telling you because I finally understand what you tried to teach us our whole lives. That actions have consequences. That you can't just take and expect people to keep giving. That love requires showing up. She took a shaky breath. I didn't show up for Dad. I didn't show up for you. And now I've lost everything, and I can't even blame you because I did this to myself. I studied her face, looking for signs of deception, manipulation. I saw only exhaustion and genuine regret. What do you want from me, Candace? Nothing, she said. I don't want anything. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. You were right. Derek was right when he said you'd regret cutting us out, but he was wrong about who would regret what. I'm the one with regrets. So many regrets. We sat in silence for a moment. I can't forgive you overnight, I said finally. What you did, what both of you did, it broke something in me. I don't know if it can be repaired. I know, she whispered. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry." I stood to leave, then paused at the door. "The social worker said you listed me as your emergency contact." "You're still my mother," Candace said, "even though I haven't acted like you are." I left without another word, but something had shifted. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe, eventually, the possibility of it. I called Isaiah from the car and told him what happened. "How do you feel?" he asked. "I don't know yet," I admitted, "but I think maybe this is the beginning of her actually growing up." "What about your dad?" "Derek?" Candace's voice came through. I had her on speaker. "He's still the same, still angry, still blaming everyone but himself. We don't talk much anymore." Some people change. Some people don't. That evening, I sat on my back porch watching the sunset, thinking about everything that had happened over the past year and a half. Walter's death, the funeral, the betrayal, the fight, the victory, and now this unexpected moment with Candace. Life wasn't neat. It wasn't simple. There were no perfect endings, just complicated, messy, human ones. But I was free. I was strong. I was surrounded by people who genuinely loved me. Isaiah, my church family, my true friends. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.